Hello everyone, welcome to day 2 of my 3-day live series. If you do come in and you can't hear me, can you just let me know? I'm testing out a new thing with the headphones. Today's topic is about perfectionism and letting go of perfectionism. And that's something that I've been working on for a very long time. In my experience, perfectionism is really this internal thing. So it's not necessarily that someone else is making me do anything, or anybody's trying to make me perform any type of way, but it's more sort of my own sense of pressure on myself. And I know a lot of people can relate to this because I've had conversations with different artists and different writers who experience the same thing, and it's something that can take hold of any of us, but especially when you're a creative or an artist or a writer, you could feel like there's certain things that you have to do that maybe you don't necessarily have to do. So that is just something that I want to bring today to our conversation. I'm just gonna take a sip of water. It's funny because I had all these ideas that came to me when I was sleeping yesterday, but it seems like some of these ideas, they're gonna come out. Let me just close the door because the birds are chirping. I'll be right back. Okay, I'm back. So if you see me looking down, I'm looking at my notes. So basically, yesterday I talked about my journey from having a lot of internal blocks. You can call it writing blocks, or you can call it anything else, constriction, limiting belief, to basically self-doubt. And all these things I've discussed in yesterday's video. So if you haven't watched it, there's a replay. And also, if you haven't checked it out, I actually just launched my Write Your Book in 1 Year course. So the link is in the bio, and you can just access that right away there. Whew, okay, that's a mouthful. So perfectionism is something that I have myself experienced. I think I, like many eldest daughters, so if you're an eldest daughter, I feel like you most likely relate to me in this way. We always try to overdo things. We always try to prove to people that we're good enough, which somehow directly translate into our work. And that means that sometimes we don't give ourselves the validation that we naturally should be giving ourselves, to accomplish things like getting your workout done in the day, or having that creative project even just planned out and brainstorm. All those small steps in the end will lead you to your final result, and you shouldn't be downplaying that. But for some reason, especially if you're conditioned as a woman, or you have these responsibility put on you for your family, it's normal for you to put yourself, or not give yourself the grace or the validation that you need. So I'm just here saying it for once and for all, that you do not need to do everything for everybody. You do not need to perform or do any activity that you don't want to do just because someone else said you have to do. And in the context of writing your book, that really applies when we're talking about an author who just wants to self-publish. If you want to self-publish your book, or if you want to be an indie author, there's a lot of all these hoops that you can skip. And if this is your first time joining, my name is Lynn, and I'm an indie author and novelist, and my novel The Napper is coming out tomorrow. So if you haven't checked it out, please grab your hands on it. And I'm also a creative coach, and my freebie is finally live, How to Write Your Book in 1 Year. It's not your typical writing course. It's more of a course that addresses the mental aspect of things, the mindset. And if you're looking for a strategy, maybe you're looking for like character tropes or more of the more technical things, maybe I'm not necessarily your girl. Even though if you were, my private one-on-one client, we do talk about some of those technical things, but my sort of forte is really like, how do we work around some of our procrastination patterns? And procrastination, especially for people with marginalized identities or people who are sensitive or people who have gone through trauma, is not just because, we're feeling lazy this one day and we're not doing what we're supposed to do, but it's also some of these behavior are examples of trauma coming out. So that's something that I briefly mentioned yesterday. I mentioned fawning, which is when you try to please everybody, and then also freezing, which is when you feel like you're like stuck and you can't move forward. And I think, it's kind of like not tolerate anymore in today's time to just say, just do it, just write your book without accounting for all of these things that happen to a lot of us. A lot of us did not come out of childhood unscathed, and we have all these little rupture or these wounds that make ourselves feel like we're not deserving, right? So a lot of female creatives, especially who I've worked with, they have amazing ideas and have great ideas, but they feel like for some reason, like even though I want to write in my book, like I can't. Like they just have this sensation of like the sense of inability to write. And of course, if you have like something that really prevents you from doing that, like an illness, like I'm not talking about that at all, but if it's a block that feels emotional or mental, most likely you have a trauma pattern that's coming up. And as someone who is certified trauma informed, I work very closely with my clients to sort of not make them bad for any of these behaviors coming up. Actually, it's very normal. And all of us, have triggers. All of us have different ways in which we're not showing up as fully or as powerfully. And I think not only do we want to work around them, but first and foremost, we want to give ourselves a lot of compassion. Compassion that I have this or that behavior that makes me unable to perform XYZ. So if you have any of those patterns, just know that it's completely normal and nothing is wrong with you. And all these behaviors, while it might seem like they create real obstacle for you, in the long run, if you keep at your creative process, if you keep at your book writing journey, and you take daily steps, even if they're very small, even not daily steps, like weekly step, whatever feels like doable to you and to your schedule, you will make it. Like there's no question about it. Now back to the beast of perfectionism. Ooh, this is a topic that I feel very strongly about, and I have so many examples of me just like doing things because someone else expected for me, instead of like listening to my true authentic voice. And that is really the topic that I want to discuss today, is how can we stop basing our story or our authentic journeys on like these external things, and how can we even if we're used to being conditioned to work for these outside expectation or outside tastes, like how can we sort of just tune ourselves in to our inner voice? And that has been my journey over the last 5 years while I was riding a napper. And let me take a sip of water. And really for me, the journey to like listening to my own voice has been understanding that like my voice is enough. So you don't have to pretend to be anything else other than your own voice. I know we hear that a lot and it almost sounds like a cliche, but I think society craves authenticity. And even now, like I'm in like a different writing programs, and I love getting education and I love perfecting my craft, but it also isn't pleasant, when all you have to do is like, how do I get better? How do I, change myself? So the more that you can balance getting education, getting, better at a certain technique with also like, okay, what is it that I want to say? Like, what is it that I want to do? And honor that. So in my example, like with the napper, I write very honestly about a character who has depression. And even though honestly, not everybody gets my vision, and again, once you publish your book or once you get out there with your work, whatever that is, it's very common that people would say like, I don't get your work. Like, not, I wouldn't say very common, but the people who the work isn't for won't necessarily relate, and that's a completely normal part of your experience. So I've had, very well-meaning teachers who I respect a lot. I still will like support them and their career, say things like, oh, this character, like, she doesn't do much, which is hilarious considering, like, yes, she does it, especially in the beginning, because all she does is napping, and that is like a symptom of her being depressed. And I just really wanted to honestly talk about the subject that I personally have not felt that people dealt with early on enough. And so if there's something that like you're called to write about, just I feel like I'm like beating off the same train again, but just write it and not let that hold you back. So if you can just focus on your path and not let any of those things deter you, you will get like the validation or from the exact people that you want to reach to. So I hope that makes sense. And if you have any questions, don't be shy and message me. I mean, I have so many stories about writing a napper that I thought like would not work, but at least from the feedback from my early readers, I really resonate with them. So for instance, like the napper is like a shorter novel. It's around like 160 pages. And if you were doing things the right way, you would have to like write each chapter to have these many words. And I'm not saying there's no place and time for that, especially I think if you want to get published like a traditional route, I think it's very smart if you follow some of those criteria. And for full transparency, I'm indie published, so I don't have the agent, I didn't go to that route. So if you want that trajectory, it's best to get help from someone who has gone through that. And as with any advice, make sure that you listen to like whoever has done whatever things that you want to achieve. So I'm specifically talking about people who want to sort of float their own boat, people who, maybe it's not important for you yet to be super big and super mainstream. And I would personally vouch for indie publishing just because as someone with trauma patterns that is still healing and still getting back with my creative process, it's been so healthy for me to work at this pace that works for me. It's been so healthy for me to like just create a project that I feel so strongly about and put it out there without, feeling like, without feeling like, the gatekeepers are not doing it. So that's something for you to think about if you're like me and you want to get published the indie way. Again, I want to iterate, that's the one thing that I can speak about. So you just have to feel very strongly about your project. You have to keep yourself on a straight timeline. And then once you feel like your project has achieved the level of completion that you want it to be, you can hire your own independent contractor. You can hire your own independent copy editor. So you don't always have to base the worth of your project on the gatekeepers. And that's something that I think I feel very strongly about, especially if you have any marginalized identity. People would love to tell you no because they have not read a character that does that thing. So it only makes sense that you might have more hurdles than the normal, like typical mainstream writer. Again, nothing is wrong. Nobody's wrong. All genres are great. But I'm just speaking to the person who has maybe a project that feels like it's not the most mainstreamly sort of typical project. So either you can go the normal route and get representation, and that's so beautiful, and I have friends who have gone that route and I'm so happy for them. Or if you're at the place where, you know what, you just want to get it out there, you don't really care so much about waiting, because sometimes when you go the traditional route, you have to wait years on end for that project to be, if it's a book, like published, and it can take a lot of toll on you. And I know some of my friends, they don't really care about, you know, having this huge traditionally published product. So if that's not you, there's so many different ways for you to reach the read that you're hoping for. And the indie publishing journey for me has just been some of the most some of the softest community, some of the most loving individuals that I've ever met. And the funny thing is, as much as I love, like, you know, what I do and like helping people just get their work out there, I obviously also am a reader, and I read all kinds of books, like from the literary fiction to the mainstream books. And a lot of the mainstream books I'm reading, the author used to be indie published, or they used to self-publish. So just because you're doing things a certain way now doesn't mean that like the next year or the years after you can't go back and do things the traditional way. All I'm saying is there's so many options for you to get your voice heard. And I think something that I've heard from people who have talked to me behind the scenes is they have these great ideas, but either they don't have the resources to like wait years and years to finally have someone, you know, support them, but they just have this message that they want to get out to the world. And I think there's something so beautiful about taking charge yourself. And I have to reiterate this because people can like not read things between the line. I'm not saying that any particular trajectory is wrong. I'm just speaking to the person that maybe just cares about having one of her projects out right now. And I think if we learn anything from the COVID era is time is of the issue. You know, I love the Napper, and perhaps one day it can be bigger than it is right now. But there is a demand for voices, for instance, for Asian voices that talk about mental health. I know that's not a topic that I've seen a lot. I mean, I've seen like more recently like memoirs like Crying Age Smart that I have yet to read. But if you have a message that you want to get out there, this is the time more than ever. This is the time because people are hungry for authentic voices, especially from people who look like me or people who are from, you know, different communities that their stories have not been heard of. And I just want to tie everything back to the topic of the day, which is perfectionism. And what it really means is, you know, there's this belief or this current of ideas saying that like you have to do things a certain way and you don't. And apply that to anything that you want. You can apply that to your book, which obviously that's, you know, my zone of expertise. So if that's what's calling you, you can access my free course in my bio. And it's so good. It talks about all the mental blocks that a first-time book writer would have. And I debunk all of the like, what happens if I do this or what happens if I do that. So if you're a writer and you call to write your book, you need to sign up for that free email course. It's so good, and I cannot believe I'm giving it away for free. But I would love for you to get on that. And the last thing I would say about this is, you know, especially if you're like me and you're an immigrant, and you're living in a majority culture that's not your own, a lot of work that you have to do, unless you're careful, is you'll spend the rest of your life convincing people to see your value, convincing people to see the worth of your project, convincing people to understand like this is your unique style and this is your unique voice. And I feel like the lowest moment in my writing career or in my career as a creative is when I spent so much energy trying to convince people to see things my way, when really what I should have done is to just finish the damn project and put it out there, and then the right people would understand it. So this is something that I already spoke about yesterday, but it really shocked me when readers, early readers of the Napper, approached me and said like, I love the book, because I honestly wrote the book thinking that like it wouldn't have any readers. Only a certain type of reader, like if she looks like me, would understand the message. But actually I've had readers from all identities, all racial background, tell me they love the Napper. Isn't that curious? Because the Napper, first of all, is indie published. It is not super long. It's only 165 pages, which now actually it's its forte because we live in this era where everything is fast paced. So not everybody wants to spend like 5 years reading a book. Again, reiterating that there's nothing wrong with a long book. I'm just saying there's so many different opportunities for different people. If you want to write a short book, you can. If you want to write a long book, you can as well. There's a market for everything. Just because you have a penchant for something doesn't mean that like it's wrong, is what I'm trying to reiterate. And so I'm literally surprised that all these readers from all these communities are telling me that they love the Napper, because again, I was conditioning to believe in this very, straight edge, you gotta do the things one way. And I've spent a lot of my life, especially being an immigrant, like trying to convince people to, understand me. And what I really hope to for you to impart today is, rather than spending your time convincing people, just spend time getting closer to your authentic message. Spend time with your project. And maybe, I use this analogy a lot in my programs, but even if you think about a racehorse, they put those blinders on the horse so that it doesn't get distracted by, all these different horses. So if you can think about yourself as a creative, as a horse, you don't want to be looking sideways. And I think that was actually my one sort of crutch as I was starting my career, is I was always constantly comparing myself to other people. And I'm not saying that that is necessarily wrong. We're all humans and that is only normal. But I think for people who already have this conviction in their mission and in their project, it's, you just need to run with it. And if you're in my world, a lot of you guys have this burning idea and this burning, book idea within you. And I just want to be another resource for you to be okay, I can do this. I don't have to make myself wrong for it. I don't have to change this message. I don't have to curtail its weirdness or its uniqueness. For instance, the Napper, literally, is about a girl who takes a lot of naps. And if you were to ask a traditional editor or maybe a more conservative agent, they would say that you can't publish something like that because the character isn't doing much. So that is something that I just want to emphasize again, is there is a market for everything, and people are really hungry for original ideas. People do not want to read the same thing that is published everywhere. And I think if you're in my world and you have this idea to write your book, it is really the time right now. And there has never been so many access to indie publishing. There's so many beautiful small press out there that want to publish your voice. There's so many different mentors out there that want to help you put words on the page. And so I just want to celebrate this moment in time. For example, for someone like me who literally grew up in Vietnam, could even finish a page of the Twilight series because I didn't understand so many words. So actually now that I said that, maybe I should go back and read the Twilight series, because when I was younger in Vietnam, I couldn't understand it. So that's actually good for me to go back and read that series. But I'm just celebrating this moment and debunking all of those myths about how you need to do things a certain way as a writer, as a creative. I have a free resource again on my bio link for people who want to write their book. It's 10 emails spread out in every 2 days, and it teaches you all the mental hoops and the mental leaps that you can take to stick with this project and to not give up. Because I know from my own experience how easy it is to give up halfway, because no one's watching you. You can say no one cares if this project doesn't come to fruition, but people generally do care. And if there's anything that surprised me the most about my project, The Napper, is people are re-embracing it. And obviously, some of them are my friends, so thank you, shout out to my friends. But really, because if there is an issue that you feel why hasn't anyone written about this yet, like me with the depressed Asian woman, which is the main character in The Napper, Like, people want to hear stories that have never been told before, or even though the story has been told before, maybe it has never been told from your voice. So this is the part where I reiterate that, if you're a creative or a writer, we want to hear from you. We're desperately craving for your work to be out in the world. And as a creative coach, I would love to help you bring that forward. If you check out all the resources in my bio, this beautiful Write Your Book in 1 Year course, it's really the fruit of my 3 years of work, and I'm so proud of it. I cannot wait to hear what you think. And again, if you're here, I would love to see you again tomorrow, in which I'm launching my first ever novel. The Napper is the work of my last 5 years. It is such a beautiful product of like different people who have influenced me as well, and I want to shout them out as well. And I just love this writing community so much. And for people who are curious about being a writer as well, I hope that you join us, and I hope that you take this, like I said, like opportunity at this day and age to join us and to put a mark of your work out there in the world. And like I said, especially if you're in my community, there has never been different resources or different ways to make this journey as a creative or as a writer so soft. And so I almost want to use the word like cuddly, but I know it sounds weird. But what I meant to say is, you don't have to do things in this harsh, overtly aggressive way, and you don't have to do all this stuff that feels heavy and pressury. You can just walk at your own pace, and you can just do things in a way that feels good for your soul, for your body, for your own personal experience. I myself have depression, and I have to work around my own limitation. And I know a lot of writers, we have our own unique issues. And just because you have something that can be quite serious doesn't mean that you cannot work around it, or you cannot create an environment. This is something that I'm going to talk about in my next masterclass, The Artist in Alignment, which is creating, this soft space for not just like the environment space, but more like your mental space, to think about things in this way that doesn't make yourself wrong for any of your natural propensities. I think that's how you say it. And just making yourself right for as much as possible, because unless you make yourself right, especially if we're talking about like writing, writing style, writing routine, writing environment, people are always going to give you the solution that makes you feel wrong. So the more that you can validate yourself, which I know is so hard, I'm such a people pleaser, so I know how hard it is, but the more that you can like affirm your journey and affirm that this is who you are and this is the way that feels right for you, the quicker actually you will be on your way to success with your manuscript, with your work being out in the world, which is what we all want. And to recap, I want to say that be wary of perfectionism, and also make yourself right for all the little things. And lastly, if you're a book writer and you want to finish your book in 1 year, this is a time to join my email freebie, which is a series of 10 emails that teaches you how to write a book in a year. So thank you so much for watching. I hope I wasn't blabbing on too much, and I hope to hear from you soon. Bye.